Now, as we've learned in this program already, some of the biggest problems that we face in life and in business are distractions and interruption and friction, both external and internal. And those things take our minds and they scramble them. They prevent us from cultivating the natural focus that is our natural power that we have, that we can use to get things done. And some of the biggest areas where we have distraction, interruption, friction, and so forth are in the areas of multitasking, where we're trying to do several things simultaneously. We're trying to juggle one thing after another. And when we are switching from one thing to another very quickly and not staying focused in one thing for a long period of time. Okay, this is kind of classic juggling too many balls, doing too much multitasking, and really living in the gray zone. So let's zoom in and focus on those for a moment and talk about why those are so dangerous. You've probably heard me mention, Tim Ferriss, who wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. He talks about how multitasking lowers your IQ more than smoking marijuana. Well, these kinds of things, they tax the mind, and they rob us of our ability to, stay on one thing until we get a lot of results out of it. And we want to figure out what are the mechanisms, how are they work, and then how do we put mechanisms in place that really do work and that help us stay focused and get what we want. Now, as you've heard me talking about these ideas, there may have been a part of you that said, yeah, but is it practical to work without interruptions? Is it practical to work without multitasking? And I think the answer is no, it's not practical to work without interruptions and without multitasking. What we've been talking about is the ideal state. In reality, when you're working in an environment with other people and you have telephones and you've got email and you have other things, and sometimes things come up that are very important and they're urgent, sometimes you have to deal with interruptions, and sometimes you have to deal with multitasking, and sometimes you have to deal with a little bit of friction. What I found that is the challenge, though, is not really the multitasking or the interruptions themselves. It's that we let them become the paradigm. We let them become the norm, and we let them, this is the important part, we let them control us instead of us controlling them. When you hear that, you might also ask, well, how do you control an interruption? Or, how do you control multitasking? How does this work? So what I'd like to do is introduce you to two ideas that you can use. They're actually ideas and techniques that go along with them that will allow you to get a grip on and get control of your interruptions and your multitasking, and eventually see them as being just a little part of what you do and not everything. See them as something that you control rather than as something that controls you. So here are the two ideas. Number one is called scheduling your interruptions. So you might want to write these words down. Schedule my interruptions. And what could you mean by that? That sounds like an oxymoron, right? It doesn't make sense. What I mean by that is that most interruptions come from people that are just activated, they're thinking short term, they're doing something urgent, it just popped into their mind and they want to call you. Most interruptions are not actually that important. They're not something that you have to respond to immediately. In fact, in a lot of cases, what you'll find is that if you make it so that people can't interrupt you as much, they will figure out how to solve the problem that they were trying to call you and get you to solve for them, if that makes sense. And so by scheduling your interruptions, what you do is you kind of say to the world, you say, I'm not really interested in being interrupted. In fact, I'm going to set it up so I can't be interrupted, except for during brief times. And if you want to reach me during one of those times. And I'm taking control of my life, you figure it out. So the way to schedule your interruptions is to set aside a couple of times during your workday where you're going to be available for incoming calls, incoming emails, incoming instant messenger messages, that kind of thing. So, you might start out by saying, okay, from 11 a.m. to noon and from 4 to 5 p.m., those are going to be my interruption times. And I'm going to schedule them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my voicemail when people call me. It's going to say, hi, it's Eben. Thanks for calling. I can't take your call right now. I'm actually available for incoming calls between 11 a.m. and noon. and 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. every day. I also try to make my outgoing calls during those times, so leave me a message and you can expect to hear back from me during one of those times. And if you really want to talk to me live, you want to reach me, just call between 11 a.m. and noon or 4 and 5 p.m. and you'll be much more likely to reach me then. Does that make sense? And then on your email, and I know several people that have done this, they have an autoresponder on their email set up that just says, "Hi, thanks for your email. I check my email between 11 a.m. and noon every day, and then again between 4 and 5 p.m. So if this is urgent, if this is like really important, you can take this other step. You can call my assistant, or you can send me a text message that says 911, or whatever. You have to, you're too insecure about unplugging from the email. I think it's better to just say, hey, I'll get back to you between 11 and noon or 4 and 5 p.m. And thank you very much for your email. So what am I doing when I'm setting these up? Well, in a way, I'm scheduling my interruptions, but I'm also programming people that I'm not available at their whim. Another thing that I do, by the way, consciously, most of the time, I'd say, 80 or 90% of the time when I'm checking email, I try to consciously never respond right back to someone who emails me. Now, why would I not want to respond right back? Because I don't want to program people that I'm available to them all the time, and I don't want to program them to expect me to email them back immediately. Does this make sense? This is the underlying issue here is not as much just the interruption here and there. The underlying issue is people getting programmed with kind of a social contract that you're interruptible and that you can be interrupted at any time, or that you're interrupting them and you expect them to get back to you very quickly. So using these two techniques that I just gave you, putting a message on your voicemail, putting one on your email that say, I check my email, I check my voicemail between 11 and 12 and 4 and 5, what you're doing is you're scheduling, in a way, you're scheduling your interruptions. It can be very powerful. The next technique I'd like to teach you here, I call Enlightened Multitasking. And you might want to write this down as well, Enlightened Multitasking. I believe in this modern age that there's no way to escape multitasking. The reality is that we just have too many things going on. We have too many social relationships. If we're running a business, especially if we're running a business from home, there's too many things that are happening that we need to keep going all at once. We need to kind of keep all the balls in the air or all the plates spinning. So we need some times where we can check our email, make a quick call, do a little bit of research, make an adjustment to the calendar, get a few people on the instant messenger, and we need times when we can do all of this to knock these things out. But just like I think it's important to schedule your interruptions, I think it's important to schedule your multitasking as well. And do enlightened multitasking, which means sit down to multitask and say, what are all the things I'm going to multitask right now, instead of just doing it responsively, reflexively. In the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey talks about this idea of be proactive. Okay, being proactive. It's one of the habits of highly effective people. It's one of the important habits. And it actually takes years to really get what it means to be proactive. And being proactive is, in essence, the other end of the spectrum of being reactive. Most of us are reactive. That's how we run our lives. We're waiting for someone to trigger us into action. We're waiting for an email to come that says, do this, so we can go, okay, I know what to do, or someone to call us. And we get programmed with this and we get kind of addicted to it. That's why we always want to check our email. Oh, is there something that I can do? Is someone trying to get me to make me do something so I'll know what to do? And we answer our phone the same way. Is someone going to call me with some information that's going to trigger me into action? That's reactive mode. Well, Stephen Covey talks about becoming proactive, where we consciously say, you know what, I'm not going to be reactive most of the time. I'm going to be proactive. So just sitting down to do some multitasking, if you go into, okay, let me check my voicemail, check my email, and that's how I'm going to multitask, you're being reactive, you're being responsive. It's like everyone else out there has a little leash on you and they're jerking on it and you're going, oh, okay, now I know what to do. When you're being proactive, what you're doing is you're saying, I have a few things that I need to get done during this multitasking time, of course I'll respond to the others who need my help, and I'll get their needs met as well, but I'm going to be proactive because I'm on a mission. I know what I'm supposed to be doing today, and I know what I need to get done. I know what my top priorities are. So, let's multitask in an enlightened and proactive way. So this is all about enlightened multitasking. It's about sitting down, scheduling your multitasking, and I recommend that you take those same windows when you're answering email, making outbound calls, taking inbound calls, that kind of thing, and do your multitasking in there because that's when it's happening. Put it in those same chunks of time. Okay, so we learned about two great techniques here. One is scheduling your interruptions and programming people that you're not going to be interruptible anymore. And of course, you've got to stop interrupting people as well. And enlightened multitasking, where when we're going to do multitasking, we do it consciously. We have the time set aside to do it. We maybe set our timer, maybe do a 50-minute session of phone calls, interruptions, multitasking, do a little enlightened multitasking. And we do it proactively, where we consciously say, okay, I'm going to do this list of things during my multitasking session. I'm going to get these things done, and then I'll also respond to a few things, but I'm going to start with where I'm going to be proactive, and I'm going to notice where I'm being reactive unconsciously. These two techniques are very, very, very important for you to use, and you'll find that the more you use them, the more you program yourself, and the more you program others that you are effective, that you are proactive, that you consciously get things done, and you don't just run around responding to everything.